Zimbabwe. We have just finished as ZanuPf the 119th ordinary session of the Politburo. We and Central Committee of ZanuPf. It was chaired by the President Emerson Mnangagwa, the winning President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. The session took stock of the recent elections and the fact that ZanuPf emerged as the winning party. We were in a celebratory mood. All the delegates took turns as they spoke to hail the victory of the party, but more important, to salute the leadership of President Emerson Mnangagwa, Dr. Emerson Mnangagwa, in the way he shepherded the electoral campaign, in the way he carried out an arduous campaign schedule covering all the provinces of the Republic of Zimbabwe, reaching out to the electorate, canvassing for the vote, which eventually led to the victory of ZanuPf. He fought this election like it was the last one of his life. He put everything, his energy, his time, his wits, his endurance, he put it all to make sure that ZanuPf emerges victorious. In light of the fact that ZEC ran a clean, principled, unbiased campaign, we took stock of the performance of ZEC, and we say we are very proud of the maturity of the Zimbabwean constitution as it endeavors to deliver democratic practice to the Zimbabwe people in front of all the world, which included observers who came from every corner of the earth. They came to Zimbabwe and they saw this jamboree of democracy being practiced by Zimbabwe. We thus say democracy in Zimbabwe is homegrown, it's ours, and our electorate, by turning up to nearly 70% to vote, proved that they are very much alive to the demands of a democratic state which owes to the sacrifice of so many Zimbabwe souls. They see the duty to vote as homage to those who fought and sacrificed their lives for the freedom and independence which we enjoy today. The delegates hailed the president for the victory. They were happy with the performance of the party. Notwithstanding, they were also already looking at the 28 general elections, and a lot of recommendations were made, a lot of self-introspection was done by the party, by the delegates, whilst the iron is still hot, to say, how do we perform better next time? This is premised upon the ZanuPf principle that even though we want independence for this country, we never take the duty to rule the people of Zimbabwe for granted. We want to make sure that we earn their support, we earn their respect, and we earn their loyalty. So we leave no stone unturned to see how we can make the electorate of Zimbabwe be satisfied with ZanuPf as the ruling party of Zimbabwe. One aspect which came out was how the vice president moved a motion to say that the president made sure that there was enough vigilance during this electoral campaign to keep the machinations of our detractors at bay. There was a lot which had been invested by the usual retinue of detractors who composed the 1884 Berlin Conference for the Partition of Africa, which is basically Western Europe. And they put a lot of money, they put a lot of technical obstacles in our way to try to shortchange the voting result, which was coming out of Zimbabweans going into their booths and putting an X They wanted to countermand that through the manipulation of technology. We are very happy that our security establishment was alert, due measures were taken, and the integrity of the voting electorate of Zimbabwe was safeguarded by making sure that those who had prying hands, either through technology or through propaganda, had no way in which they could affect the outcome of the election. So we also want to hail our security services for the sterling job which they did, and the delegates took due note of the alertness of the Zimbabwean state to make sure that it protects the voter as he carries out his constitutional duty. So a motion was put in support of the president for this vigilance of our state apparatus to make sure that he safeguarded the integrity of the Zimbabwean vote. The delegates took note of the visit of the President to the United Nations General Assembly, where he did a sterling job in extolling the democratic endeavors, the democratic performance of the Zimbabwe people, and convinced all and sundry that this was a fair election which reflected the will of the majority of the Zimbabwe people. He is very grateful, and we took note of, as the delegates, of the support from the fellow SADC countries who were at the United Nations, who all in unison stood up to condemn the illegal sanctions. These are again part of the continuing efforts, machinations, to try to effect regime change and to try to shortchange the people of Zimbabwe in their exercise of their democratic right. We are thankful of our SADC brothers for the continued support which we enjoy from them, but also the president held the support from the various progressive countries in the world which have stood by Zimbabwe, and he also highlighted the support, including the message of recognition and congratulations which came from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Guterres. We are very grateful that this body, which represents the aspirations of common humanity, has found that the election in Zimbabwe was free and reflected the will of the Zimbabwe people, and that the win of our president was based on the credible support of the Zimbabwean electorate. We advised, the president advised in his report to the Central Committee, that there is no prospect of a government of national unity. There is no prospect of a transitional authority because we had won to independence in 1980, and that put paid to any outside body other than the sovereign will of the Zimbabwe people being the ones which decide on electoral issues. So there's nothing like a transitional authority coming from outside. There definitely will be no rerun of this election. It's done. And the Central Committee noted that the president has moved swiftly to select a cabinet, and it's complete and it's in place, and it's already working to make sure that the National Development Strategy #1, which brought so much turnaround to the Zimbabwe economy, can now become a basis for the growth of the Zimbabwe economy at a rate which has never been seen in Africa. Our economy is performing well, and the president is going to the next stage to make sure that Zimbabwe gets the prosperity which it deserves through the Zimbabwe is open for business mantra, which is attracting both domestic and international capital in droves into Zimbabwe. So he's going to pursue with vigor the programs and policies which have delivered, which have turned around the Zimbabwe economy, but now deliver palpable prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe. So this, in short, was what our Central Committee today delved on, and in particular the laudatory, the celebratory environment among the delegates as they savored their victory once again against a tainted opposition which wants to accept part of the results but refuse the other set of results. We say to them, It's an a la carte menu, it's not a cafeteria menu. You take the results of the councils, you take the results of the National Assembly, you accept them. By dint, you must also accept the presidential results because they are coming from the same harmonized election. You can't choose your victory, you can't choose your loss. That is only decided by the people of Zimbabwe. And ZEC is the only constitutionally mandated authority to give us the decision, the outcome, which would have been made by the people of Zimbabwe as they voted. And ZEC has pronounced, and ZEC must be abided with. And that's what we are proceeding with as ZanuPf. We also had in-house issues. We are going to have a conference of the ruling party. It will be held in Gweru on the 28th and 29th at our vaunted conference center built by our Midlands province. We will be back. This is the home of the province. We are also going to be celebrating Midlands province for giving us a leader in the caliber and stature of President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, a young man who decided to sacrifice his life by being a pioneer of the fledgling army, which is now the Zimbabwe Defense Forces today. He did that in the 1960s, and he's lucky to be the only survivor of the original recruits who are now, who have become the mammoth armies, which were Zanla and Zipra, which would then deliver the victory in 1980, and today, which are the backbone of the Zimbabwe state as the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. It's such a pleasure that a man with such a loaded history has managed to survive and continues to save his beloved country and continues to deliver one victory after another. And the Politburo said, long live Mr. President. You enjoyed your birthday recently. We would want you to maintain your leadership at the helm of the revolutionary part of Zimbabwe and continue to score more victories so that Zimbabwe can walk with their heads high, with the can-do spirit, which is typical of Zimbabwe at work. I thank you.